Hello everyone! In today's video, I'm going to show you how to use this cheap 4-channel relay board, which you can easily find on AliExpress. This board comes with an ESP12F and 4 relays that can handle up to 10A each. This board will be controlled through a touchscreen display using the ESP-NOW protocol for wireless control. This board is designed so that you can choose between 2 power supply options. You can power it with DC voltage from 7 to 30 volts or with AC voltage from 110 to 250 volts. Important note, only use one power source at a time, do not connect both DC and AC power simultaneously. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'll be using a touchscreen display to control the relay board, and the best value option for this project is still the CYD board. I'll create a control interface using the LVGL library and use ESP-NOW wireless communication to control the relay board remotely. Flashing firmware to the ESP12F relay board is very simple. First, you need to jumper GPIO 0 to GND to put the board into firmware upload mode. This jumper is usually included when you purchase the board. Next, you'll need a USB to TTL adapter with either a CH340 or CP2102 chip. If you don't have one yet, I've included a reference link in the video description. The wiring is straightforward. VCC of the USB to TTL to VCC of the relay board, GND to GND, TX to RX of the relay board, RX to TX of the relay board. I've also shown the wiring diagram on screen. Once you plug the USB into your PC and see the 2 LED on the board light up, that means the board is ready to flash the firmware. After successfully flashing the firmware, make sure to remove the jumper from GPIO 0 so the ESP12F can boot normally and run the uploaded program. For the UI part, I've created a design mockup on Figma. I've set up several panels and buttons in different color schemes so you can choose the one that suits your style. The link to the design files will be included in the video description. Feel free to download and customize them as you like. Finally, I'll import this design into SquareLine Studio to export the UI files in a format that's ready to use with the ESP32. Back in SquareLine Studio, I finished designing the UI. All the layers from Figma have been imported into the Assets section of SquareLine. I ran a quick simulation, and as you can see, everything works smoothly. As for configuring widgets and events in SquareLine, I've already made several detailed tutorial videos on this topic. You can head over to my channel, go to the playlist section, and check out the previous videos. There's a lot of useful content there. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any upcoming videos. Back in SquareLine Studio, you can add images by clicking the Add File to Asset button. After that, don't forget to go to File. Project Settings, select the LVGL version. In this case, I'm using version 9.1 and set the output paths for exporting the UI files. Once everything's set, just click Apply Changes to save the configuration. In this video, I'll show you how to create a custom button using the Image Button widget in SquareLine Studio. I'll demo just one button, and you can follow the same steps to create the others. On a blank screen, I first select the Image widget. Then, in the Asset tab, I choose an image to display. Next, I drag in an Image Button widget, go to the Button State section and set the Released State image. This is the default appearance of the button. Then I switch the button state to Pressed, and select a different image to show when the button is clicked. I run a quick simulation. As you can see, when I click the button, the image changes accordingly. Next, I'll show you how to create a toggle button along with a status panel that shows or hides when the button is pressed. First, I create a panel with the size 216 by 32 pixels. You can customize the color and transparency in the Style Settings tab. I also add a yellow border around the panel to make it stand out. Then I add a text label inside the panel to display status or information. Once everything is in place, I'll hide the panel by default and then move on to configuring the button's event. This part is important, so make sure to pay close attention. In the Event tab, I select New Event. For the action, I choose Modify Flag, then click Add. For the object, I select the panel 5 that I just created and set the action to Remove. Then I run the simulation. As you can see, when I click the button, the panel appears. Now I go back to the button state section and assign images for the toggle states. For both checked released and checked pressed, I set the image to represent the on state of the button. Returning to the event configuration, I create another new event. This time, I choose Modify State as the action, target the button itself, and set the action to Toggle. Running the simulation again, when I click the button, it toggles between states and shows or hides the panel accordingly. For the automatic show hide of the panel in real use, I'll handle that using a timer in the source code, just like the demo shown at the beginning of the video. So with that, the UI design is complete. Now I'll export the UI and move on to the next part of the video, an overview of the source code. Alright, let's move on to the final part of the video, a quick overview of the source code. First, let's talk about the ESP-NOW code. I've already made a few videos explaining how it works in detail, so for this project, I'm simply reusing that code without major changes. In this project's ESP-NOW implementation, I've also added support for running alongside Wi-Fi, which can be handy if your application needs both ESP-NOW communication and internet access at the same time. You can refer to that part of the code if you're planning to implement similar functionality. In this part of the video, I'll focus on how I handle event logic using LVGL. As you can see here, there are two UI.c files, one generated by SquareLine Studio with default code and another one that I've manually optimized to make it cleaner and easier to manage. If you look at the default version from SquareLine, you'll see that for each toggle button, an individual event handler is written. In my case, I have 4 toggle buttons, so the code repeats 4 times. But imagine if you had 10 or more buttons, this method would be messy and hard to maintain. So here's the idea. I created an array that stores the state of all buttons. You can declare this array to fit however many buttons you need, 5, 10, or more. In this demo, I'm using 4 buttons, so the array size is 4. When I press a button, my event function uses the user data field to get the button's ID. It then uses this ID to toggle the relay state inside the state.btn number array. If the ID is invalid, for example, greater than 3 and below 0, it will simply return and do nothing. Next, it toggles the corresponding relay state, turning it on if it was off or off if it was on. Based on the new state, it updates the button icon image on off and displays a message like Relay X is on. Note that the ID in the array starts from 0, but on the UI we label it from 1, so I add +1 to match them. Finally, it shows the notification panel for 3 seconds, and if there's a function to save the current state to flash, that function is also called. Make sure you register the new event handler you just created inside the UI screen.c file so the event can be properly linked to the buttons. If you don't do this step, your buttons won't respond to any interaction even if the code logic is already written. Now, moving on to the code for the ESP12F relay board. Since this is based on the ESP8266, we just need to include the ESP8266 Wi-Fi library. You also only need to declare the GPIOs for controlling the relays, set the board ID and MAC address. The ESP-NOW configuration is pretty much the same as on the ESP32. That's a quick overview of the code. Of course, there are still many details I couldn't fully cover in this video. You can download the full source code from the link in the description to explore further. If you have any questions or run into issues, feel free to leave a comment or join my Discord server to discuss with me and other members. The link is also in the description. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to leave a like, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any upcoming videos. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. See you in the next video.